Good morning. Not quite yet good afternoon. I'd never heard of good noon, but it is noon. So we're going to talk about the subtle secrets of your spiritual dimension. Are you comfortable with your spiritual side? Yes? You have your inner world. That's the world where you dream. It's the world where you feel. It's the world where you have certain knowing, premonitions. It's a world where there are many, many good things. And also there's a lot of interference in your subtle dimension by bad things. So your worries live there too, your anxieties pollute your inner world. So one of the subtle secrets is pain is mandatory. There will be pain sooner or later, is it? Suffering is optional. And you can actually separate those two. And really, suffering is really how you deal with or fail to deal with pain. And suffering is in your mind, it's thoughts about the pain. For example, it should not be there, for example. And so one secret is to say, it is there. And let me feel it. And let me develop my powers of endurance. Because, I could deny it, but that wouldn't be truthful. And that would make me weak. So that's not necessarily the best option. So it's good to acknowledge it. Yes, I am in pain. There could be physical pain, emotional pain, psychological pain, social pain, financial pain, and even philosophical pain. Because the world is, at the moment, full of pain-producing events, occurrences, phenomena, circumstances, and we are in contact with the world through our sense organs and also through our sixth sense. You can also feel it in your mind. And your mind is also part of your spiritual dimension. So the secrets that I would like for us to take a look at is, what is important that we have access to that's in there that not everybody may be really aware about, or not everybody might have developed skills around. You see, because the art of managing your inner world is a very worthwhile art to cultivate, because it is there, whether you shut it out or not, it is there. And sometimes when you are experiencing pain, it takes the form of anxiety, right? I think most people in the world live in relatively low-grade anxiety all the time. And occasionally you feel comfortable inside your skin. Is that right? So there's something about managing that's very important for us, because if you live in low-grade anxiety all the time, it builds up a lot of stress, and then people say, well, I want some stress relief. And I think, as far as I can see, the amount of stress that people have is kind of getting more. It doesn't seem to be getting much less. Is that right? So when you have stress to a certain point, it starts to become unendurable. And when things are unendurable, then you sort of react against them as an attempt to release the pressure, and it usually backfires, right? And so there's a lot of mystery around how do I deal with my situation that I really can't get out of. So denial and shutting it out is a very popular option. And so that's why so many people spend so much time texting. Because when you text, you're temporarily unaware of the anxiety, the pain, the pressure, and stuff like that. It's a temporary relief, you know. And it's like having a cup of tea. You temporary relief for a few minutes, or have a cigarette. Now cigarettes are not very popular, so we don't have cigarettes anymore. But they did the same job, you know, and then produced nicotine addiction. And then, okay, we have a drink, you know, that's still legal. You know? And why are all the pubs going bankrupt? Because people drink at home, it's cheaper. But it's more lonely. So then you put the TV on. Yeah, some people, they keep the TV on all the time. They don't actually watch it. It's just there in the background. So you know there's some kind of company. Oops. I'll turn this off. I tried it a little while ago and it said, we run out of juice, we're not going to turn on. So I said, okay, fair enough. But anyway, we'll put it on silent. And you can't go far without your iPhone. There are actually cameras with a phone function. Is that right? They're very good cameras. And so we're part of the communication with each other through the social media. You have your Twitter, your Facebook, your texting, all of this stuff. And some of it's because of loneliness. Loneliness? You have that? I mean, most people do. Relationship is a very, very difficult thing to have successful. And I think it's because of all these other things I was telling you about. You know, people are need something to fill the hole in your soul. Do you have a hole in your soul? A lot of people do. How big is the hole in your soul? Your soul is minute, microscopic, less than microscopic, really, really tiny spark of life. But the hole in it is like the whole ocean. I see. So how do you fill that hole, and with what do you fill that hole? So a lot of people try to fill it with being in love with somebody, because that feels good for a few minutes or a week or two, or just enough time till you get married, and then the next day, oops, what did I do? How come it changed? It's a kind of phenomenon. But then becomes the dreadful process of waking up every morning and going through the increasing difficulties. And where is the solution to all of these things? Because where you experience the difficulties is on the inside, which is actually your spiritual dimension. And now when you hear about the word spirituality and all these other various different tents here, except this one, they will tell you, you know, peace, love, serenity, tranquility, you know, and you listen to meditation commentaries, and I'm really good at doing that, so I can make you feel good, no problem, but temporary. So in the end you say, well, temporary is very nice, but how about some permanent? You know, so the permanent part is really what we're looking for. And so I think when you start to get interested in the spiritual dimension, you need more information, like what exactly is it and what powers it, you know. In a way, you could say your spiritual dimension is powered by the mind. And what is your mind? You all have one. You've never seen one. Somebody's out of their mind. Somebody's lost their mind. Somebody's, We have all these expressions, but the mind is a word that we use not for a sort of an object or an instrument, but it's more like perhaps a capacity to think, capacity to feel, capacity to experience. And these are all internal things. And then we use the word the mind as if it's some kind of object. When you say your heart, well, you think about, something that's shaped like that. And, so you think of it as an object, and then you have this pumping device inside here, which moves your blood around depending on how you feel. So you can think of your heart as a thing, but then your mind, and really your heart isn't a thing. Your heart is the core of your being. And so you want your heart to feel full, and you don't want your heart to be hurt, because it's very, very fragile, delicate. Most people have broken heart, is that right? And many pieces, and then you become a kind of disintegrated being in that case. So you feel shattered because of all that. And so what a spirituality is about is two things. One is having a vocabulary that can talk about things that are really intangible. Even these spiritual qualities like love or peace or personal power or purity or happiness, you can't really put your finger on it because it's really very intangible. And it's actually, these are the elemental qualities that make up your soul. And you can experience yourself using your mind. When you turn the energy of your mind towards yourself, you experience yourself, your spirit, your soul, you see. And one of the things that we think is that the souls of the world are running on empty. Because these commodities, peace, how much peace do you have? Can you be peaceful in circumstances of turbulence? Or do you become disturbed when circumstances are disturbing? Usually the external circumstances affect you and you become whatever it is they want you to become. You become disturbed, you become excited, you become deranged, you become bored, you become because of something from the outside that you experience. And what we think in Raja Yoga and Brahma Kumaris is that it's because our mind is externalized. We're living on the surface of our bodies. And we're living through what we see, what we hear about. All of that fills our mind and sort of drowns out the inner world as it is in and of itself. And so one of the things we do for this is we practice to turn our attention within. So I am on the inside with my mind, my personality, all attributes of my being, and then the world as we know it starts after my skin. So one practice that we do, which is really helpful, is you imagine yourself to be like a beautiful being of light who is sitting a couple of inches behind your eyes. Looking out through your eyes. So you start to make a distance, a gap between yourself and the instruments of perception. Because if you close your eyes, then you can't see what you see when you open them. Is that right? You can't close your ears. Well, you can put your fingers in them, but, because you can perceive what's happening in the material world, and you can't just cut off your sense perceptions. You need your sense perceptions, but anything and everything comes in through them. And so we need to make a few rules and regulations. Who can come in my house and who has to stay outside, you know. A bit like border control. And so we look at our thoughts, you know. What thought am I thinking? Because we want to be the master of what is happening in our mind, which is, of course, thoughts. We think thoughts, and what am I going to feel? So there's all of these things which come up in your mind, but then you decide you'll stay or, out. Don't want you. Have to be able to distinguish, able to discern between who you want to spend time with and who you don't want to spend time with in terms of thoughts and feelings. You see? Because anybody anybody can come in. Your doors are open, your windows are open, anybody can come in. Does anybody leave their door unlocked all night? Not usually, right? Because you don't know, somebody you don't want might come in. They knock on the door, you say, who's there? Is a friend or foe? You know, they say, oh, the friend, you know, okay, come in. Foe, sorry, Om Shanti, go away. It's like that. So we had to do the same with thought. That's really a very important part of spiritual practice of meditation. And so you will also find that we have also some meditation tent here where you can actually experience some meditation commentaries, and I'm going to do one in 12:40 or something. That's after another 20 minutes, but so that you can learn a few techniques that how to actually guide your mind and teach your mind how to think along the thoughts that you wish it to think. So where is your will in all of this? That's another part of your soul. The soul says, I will think of this and I will not think of that. And then the mind says, sorry, you will think what I want you to think. So sometimes you experience some inner conflict, is that right? So who is in charge? So another part of spirituality is to say that I am the one who guides my mind. Because the mind is like a 2-year-old. It goes all over the place. But the will which is based in wisdom, will say to the mind, no, don't go there. Or it'll give you a different perspective, because the mind says, this is bad, I don't like this, right? Doesn't feel good. And your will say, well, that may be true, doesn't feel good, but is it good or is it bad? What are your criteria? Can't be just how it feels, because feelings can be deceptive. You need other criteria. So you start to have a lot going on the inner dimension. And of course this is then expressed in how you operate through your body, through your words, through your activities. You say, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, and this is what I'm not. See, so you are asserting yourself as who you really are, because the idea is to be true to the self, is that right? So, I'm going to stop there. And if you'd like us to talk a little bit more about this, there's a big round table over there, and you can join me for some further conversation, because I'm just going to go right over there, and please come and join me. Thank you. Om Shanti. Good morning. Not quite yet good afternoon. I'd never heard of good noon, but it is noon. So we're going to talk about the subtle secrets of your spiritual dimension. Are you comfortable with your spiritual side. Yes, you have your inner world. That's the world where you dream. It's the world where you feel. It's the world where you have certain knowing, premonitions. It's a world where there are many, many good things, and also there's a lot of interference in your subtle dimension by bad things. So your worries live there too, your anxieties pollute your inner world. So one of the subtle secrets is pain is mandatory. There will be pain sooner or later, is it? Suffering is optional. And you can actually separate those two. And really, suffering is really how you deal with or fail to deal with pain. And suffering is, in your mind, it's thoughts about the pain. For example, it should not be there, for example. And so one secret is to say, it is there. And let me feel it. And let me develop my powers of endurance. Because, I could deny it, but that wouldn't be truthful. And that would make me weak. So that's not necessarily the best option. So it's good to acknowledge it. Yes, I am in pain. There could be physical pain. Self as who you really are, because the idea is to be true to the self. Is that right? So I'm going to stop there. And if you'd like us to talk a little bit more about this, there's a big round table over there, and you can join me for some further conversation, because I'm just going to go right over there, and please come and join me. Thank you. Om Shanti. So I'm going to stop there. And if you'd like us to talk a little bit more about this, there's a big round table over there, and you can join me for some further conversation, because I'm just going to go right over there, and please come and join me. Thank you. Om Shanti.